Frieda von Richthofen was the daughter of a very wealthy German aristocrat. In 1914 she married D.H. Lawrence, the Eastward-born and raised son of a butty. When the couple first met, Frieda was already married to Ernest Weekly, with whom she had 3 children. Upon meeting Lawrence, Frieda had no intentions of leaving her husband. She lived an extremely liberal lifestyle, which allowed her to explore her sexuality despite her marital status. This all changed, however, when Lawrence wrote to Weekly disclosing the affair. This letter led to Frieda's divorce and consequently the loss of her children due to the patriarchal laws of this era. Lawrence's biographer, John Worthen, commented that Frieda's desire to be free had little consistency with Lawrence's intentions of making her his partner. However, it can be argued that Frieda was one of the only women who would give Lawrence what he wanted at the time they met. There always has, and always will be, the question of whether this relationship had a positive or detrimental effect on Lawrence's writing. It is debated that if Lawrence had married his first fiancé, Louis Burroughs, he would have lived a much quieter, settled life in England, rather than embarking on the travels that inspired so many of his works. Lawrence and Frieda's travels are a massive contributory factor in how much of a prolific writer Lawrence became. Many of his works were inspired by the places they visited and the people they met along the way. Frieda's vitality and willingness to explore is something that Louis Burroughs simply didn't possess. 1919 saw Lawrence begin his ventures around the world, moving to Florence until his wife joined him for their temporary stay in Picanisco, located in the Abruzzi Mountains. The couple then relocated again to an English writing colony in Capri, before their 2-year settlement in Sicily, beginning in February 1920. Leaving England was something Lawrence had contemplated for a while, but when he and Frieda were forced out of Cornwall during the war period, this desire increased, and they consequently moved away from England forever, only coming back for temporary visits. During this time, Lawrence published the book Woman in Love, the sequel to the equally controversial novel The Rainbow. Both novels featured explicit details of lesbian relationships, thought to be inspired by his good friend Catherine Mansfield. The second novel was considered so extreme and outrageous that it was described as bestial by John Middleton Murray, Mansfield's husband and Lawrence's friend to become enemy. The trend of overwhelming explicitness continued throughout Lawrence's work, with several of his texts being either banned or heavily censored before publication. This obscenity can be credited to Frieda, who not only supported Lawrence's work but read and edited many of his novels before they were sent off to publishers, ensuring sexual scenes were believable. A more traditional wife of the 1910s would have typically not have been so encouraging of their husband creating such controversial literature, again representing how liberal Frieda truly was and how she allowed Lawrence to thrive. These liberal characteristics, combined with Lawrence's apparent sexual identity crisis and philosophies of blood consciousness, are thought to have been the fuel that ignited a large amount of the literature Lawrence produced. Biographer Abigail Abbs discussed how Frieda was known to have had an affair with Otto Gross, a pioneering psychoanalyst. This affair gave Frieda a deeper sense of herself as a free woman, who could use her imagination to propel men into success. Subsequently, many of Gross's ideas surrounding Freudian psychology found their way into Lawrence's work. There have always been conspiracies that the protagonist of Lady Chatterley's Lover, one of Lawrence's most famous works, is a representation of Frieda. John Worthen has a theory that the novel is inspired by the affair his wife had with an Italian officer, whilst Lawrence was suffering from tuberculosis. In the novel, Lady Chatterley and the gamekeeper she is having an affair with discuss the idea of marriage. This is almost as if Lawrence knew that after his death, Frieda would go on to marry the officer with whom she had her affair. These similarities were so easily spotted as the novel did not become available in Britain until 1960, 30 years after Lawrence's death and 10 years after his wife's remarriage.